What's up guys, it's been less than 10 months since the release of the Nano X, and Reebok have now launched the Nano X1, their latest Nano. And I couldn't resist but get hold of the early colourway, the I'll Call You Back all black colourway, and put it through its paces and kind of let you know what I think. There's big changes in the design, in the look. Sometimes hard to tell when it's an all black colourway, but I'm going to kind of give you a rundown of what they've done. But before I go into detail about the X1, let's kind of talk about the Nanos over the last kind of 4 or 5 years. We see kind of evolutions in kind of the design, and we're actually seeing some of those older designs coming back in the X1. So if we go back to 2016, I think it was, I've had to get these out from the closet. We had the Nano 6. I believe these were the first ones that brought the dual density midsole, which made them a lot more comfy to wear. Kind of like outside the gym as well as in the gym. Really kind of like, they were one of my favorite kind of trainers to wear when they came out. They just had that out of the box comfort that previous kind of trainers I thought lacked. Then I don't have a pair of the 7s. They were a mixed bag, I think. Some people found them really uncomfy. I did have a pair, but I don't have them anymore. But I managed to find a pair of Nano 8s in the back of my car. I thought I had a black and gum somewhere, but I don't know where they've gone. Big changes here was we saw a change from the kind of mixture of kind of the weave and the kind of solid material to the all kind of single upper, kind of in the first evolution of the flex weave. What we also saw as well was we saw the polyurethane kind of heel clip to give that lateral stability that potentially needed to kind of make up for the lack of kind of the structure and the stitching in the upper. But we really started to see this kind of design, and this design stuck around for a while. And the 8 is a super popular trainer, and I think, to be honest, if someone said you can only have one type of Nano, what would it be? I'd go with the Nano 8. How it differed to the Nano 7, from what I could tell, was the Nano 7 didn't have this kind of like neoprene booty that we saw kind of common in both the 8, but subsequently the 9, and even to some degree the 10. So we go from the Nano 8 to the Nano 9. The Nano 9 did away with this style of heel clip, and actually what we saw is we started to see like an enlarged outsole, similar to, some would say, to kind of like what Metcon were doing, in that it was providing that lateral stability but in a different fashion, not as kind of like high up into the heel towards the Achilles as we saw with the Nano 8. Redesign of the flex weave, but again still that single body upper, and this was again another really popular shoe. 2020 we saw the release of the Nano X, or the Nano 10, and so here I've got one of the early colorways, and what I've always described this, and you can see it in earlier reviews that I've done of it, was kind of like a Nano 9 with a body kit. I mean, they'd introduced a lot of more kind of like additional materials around the laces, but also much higher cuff, higher heel here, larger tongue, but the kind of sole remained very comparable to the Nano 9. But it was definitely a redesign of the upper, and also kind of like a change in the style of flex weave as well. But actually these two are very comparable, and I'd say this looks comparable to that. But then we talk about the Nano X1 and things get really different. So what have they done with the X1? The X1 is a hell of a lot lighter than the Nano X. It's probably more comparable in weight to the Nano 8. There's some really good comparisons, and I definitely recommend kind of like having a look at some of those, and I'll put some links to that on the screen. But really I think that's what they've tried to do, is they've tried to go for a lot lighter trainer. So they've done away with the kind of body kit, as I mentioned, for the Nano X. And they've gone for this very lightweight. We've even got rid of the kind of like the double cuff at the top of the trainer, so we're back to kind of a single kind of material thickness, especially at the front, really light. I'm going to be honest, it feels similar to what Nike have done with going from the Metcon 5 to the Metcon 6, kind of really going for that lightweight, breathable upper. Be really interesting to understand whether it's going to hold up with regards to durability, especially with things like rope climbs. I know Tal Short has been asked that, who's the kind of product manager for Reebok, and he said they've held up well, kind of as they've really put them through the ringer on a rope in the past. but let's be honest, like a lot of people won't be training in the gyms right now in the same fashion with the same intensity potentially, so that might not be an issue, but long term the trainer should stand up to the durability of kind of CrossFit and functional training. So what else has changed other than the upper? Well, in getting rid of the kind of like some of the structure that we've previously seen in the upper, we've seen the return to the heel clip, the polyurethane heel clip that I mentioned on the Nano 8. This actually comes up really high. It then meets at the back to kind of give some kind of extra durability support in the heel for things like handstand push-ups, you know, and I know that's something that's been introduced in the past by the Metcon, for example. I've trained in these a little bit. I've done some things like wall balls, goblet squats, dumbbell thrusters. The reason for that is that people have talked about how the Nano X1 has got a larger heel toe drop to previous Nanos. Previous Nanos I think have a heel drop of 4 mil, and I believe these have a heel drop of 7 mil. However, I do wonder whether we're approaching that heel drop in a different fashion, because if you have a look at them alongside the Nano X, there's a little bit more of a, what I describe as a rocker, which you get more in running trainers to kind of give that kind of rocking motion that can be beneficial within kind of running, especially if you're a heel striker, or even if you're a mid-foot striker, then you get that roll when running. So I wonder whether when we talk about a 7 mil drop, actually we're talking about it in a different fashion, in that rather than it being a wedge like you might have for a lifter, we're now seeing that we've got a more of like a kind of a rocker to kind of aid with like the running, the shuttles, that type of movement. And just to kind of give an example, this is a UK 8, this is actually a UK 8.5, and I will get into that in more detail in terms of sizing. But if we push down here, we can see how much the heel raises. If we push down here, you can see that the heel is raising a lot more, which for me is showing that there's a little bit more of a rock to the sole. So that is what made me want to look at things like wall balls, things like goblet squats, thrusters, where you're loading in the frontal plane, that you might have a tendency to kind of be pulled forward, which might cause you to kind of like tilt forward. And I'll be honest, in training these, I didn't have that problem. I will say, and I've got some footage up, and you can critique it all you want, but I've not got the best squatting mechanics, so I'm not the best person to kind of judge. But I don't think there are many people out there that have got perfect squatting mechanics. But I didn't actually find them any worse than kind of the Nano X's for wall balls, for dumbbell squatting, for goblet squats. The other thing I'd say as well is that like the design at the back of the sole, you've really got this kind of splayed out sole, so you're still getting that large kind of footprint on the turf or on the tarmac, so you feel really stable. And I'm really impressed with like how much power kind of transition I can get when I'm doing things kind of like snatches or just generally just feeling quite kind of firm in the base. I did then do a short Metcon that actually involved some running, kind of mountain climbers and dumbbell snatch. Running in them felt good. They felt light. They felt like you want a running trainer to be. I didn't feel like the heel was too solid. I know they've introduced the float ride technology, which I presume is something they're transitioning across from other kind of lines of their trainers. One thing I did find though is this heel clip, the polyurethane heel clip on the inside here, that pressed into my instep. Not so much that it was painful. I mean, I was only doing like 100-meter shuttles, but I could feel it. It didn't feel like comfy in that sense. So, you know, I mean, I'd never looked to wear my Nanos for doing long running, but that was something I noticed, that the return of this large heel clip did actually kind of press uncomfortably on my instep, and again, that might be down more to my propensity to kind of like collapse in on my arches. So but again, I'm just a average kind of like recreational CrossFitter, so I'm sure there are many other people who have that issue as well. So that's my initial thoughts. A little bit of a history on the Nanos as well, but really interesting to see kind of Reebok in such a short time period. I'm sure they've been developing them for years to kind of go very different to the Nano X's, completely changing the upper design, going to something very lightweight, and actually revisiting this large heel clip design that that are kind of like left with the Nano 8 kind of a number of years ago now. Final point on sizing. I'd heard from early access to potentially size up. Some people are finding they're needing to size down, and there's been some really interesting comparisons on Instagram showing that the kind of like sole size is very different for like a Nano X8 versus a Nano X1 8. I've gone up to an 8.5 and they feel okay. I did originally try to go half a size up in the Nano X, and just found them to feel too much like, for want of a better word, flippers. I like my Nanos to feel snug, and these really still have the same kind of like, you know, like thumbs width between my toes and the end of the shoe that I get with the size 8. So, you know, going half a size up isn't going to be a problem. But again, it's probably going to come down to personal preference. But be interested to see if anything comes out about some kind of discrepancies in sizing and whether that's different at different spaces, especially like, you know, with kind of production and supply. But there we go. My thoughts. Hope you enjoyed it. Take it easy.